Hello everyone. I am here to do a review, an honest review of some gouache tubes of gouache from Arteza. This company is a fairly new company. They are out of Delaware, and they contacted me a while ago to see if I would like to collaborate with them. If they sent me some products, I would do honest reviews. And I appreciated that. They really wanted honest reviews. And I've already done some of their watercolor pan sets and premium cotton paper and water brushes and also their tube watercolors. But they just recently sent me some gouache and some brushes and some sketchbooks. And I wanted to review some of that today. So I would like to say that they do offer an affiliate program, and I declined that because I felt like it wasn't fair for me to review something and then share links to their products that if you purchase them, I would get a cut of that. You know, I just didn't feel that was something I wanted to do. So I'm not compensated for this in any way except that they sent me their products, which is lovely. So today I'm going to review their gouache colors. So this is a box set of 60 premium gouache colors is what they call it. And it comes in this really nice sturdy box. And what I love about it, it is really sturdy. It comes with a coupon on the back for 20% off. And what I love about all of their products is that they're really well marked on what's inside. And one thing that's interesting is that they have the light fast rating, the color number, the name, and then the pigments used in the colors. And so you're really clear on what you're getting. And most of these, almost all of them, have real pigment in them. They are student grade paint, but they're a really nice student grade paint. So they're using real pigments, but because it's gouache, they've also got white pigments in here, okay? And so we'll try them out. I haven't tried them yet. But they do have light fast ratings and transparency ratings. And these are gouache, so they're all going to be opaque, except for a couple. The Prussian blue and the ultramarine blue say that they're semi-transparent and transparent. All right. Sap green, Viridian. Let's see if there's any other ones. But it's really easy to see the way they've marked it here. Oh, peach red is also transparent. Now, as far as light fastness, they're all pretty good, except for a few, and there's only a few. Pearl bubblegum, peach red, and blush pink, I think, are the only ones that are not, oh, pearl orange, that are not completely light fast. So that's really good to know. And so what I did is I basically took their colors and I swatched them all out on this notebook. I'll show you the inside of the box in a minute. Now, so I put little dot swatches and put the name of the gouache underneath it. And we're going to swatch those in a little bit. But first I want to show you, this is their premium artist watercolor sketchbook. It comes in this really nice hardcover cloth bound book, okay? And then they say the paint, I don't believe that the paper is 100% cotton. I'm pretty sure it's not. But they say that it's double-sided. So it actually is, but I'm not sure. So the book is put together with this paper, and one side of the paper is smooth like a hot press, and one side of the paper is texture like a cold press. So when you go through it, like in this spread, this side is hot press, this side is cold press, but then when you flip it over, it's the opposite. This is actually all hot press, and then this is all cold press, and then you'll go again to where it's hot press, cold press, or you know, so it just it changes from page to page. So that may or may not matter to you. I have tried the sketchbook. They come in a pack of 2. And so in this one, I tried it out with some swatching of my own paints. And this is the hot press side, this is the cold press side. And they're very nice. They're not, I would not call them really professional grade, but for a sketchbook, we're not really looking for that. The colors stayed fairly true. They dried with a nice texture, all right? So you can see, this is the hot press, all right? So I get a lot of texture when the paint dries, all right? And here I was swatching out some skin tone colors, and this is the cold pressed surface, and I'm really happy with it. For sketchbook work, I think this is pretty darn good. So we'll also see how it works with gouache. This is actually watercolor. They're stitched very nicely. They come with a lot of sheets. The price is great. Depending on where you buy it, it's going to be different. And it also has a ribbon bookmark if you need that. So really, really great value. I would buy these to use for sketchbook work. And for my sketchbook work, for this kind of thing, I would use it for testing colors, for testing ideas, for swatching new paints, all of those things. This is, I think they're fabulous. It comes with this nice strap to keep it closed and flat. So really great. Okay, and I will link all of these products in the description box so you can go directly to their website and see them. And I believe they also give me a coupon code, so I'll be listing that as well. Well, actually, let me bring back the box. So the box, all of Arteza's products are packaged really beautifully, like better than some professional paints that I get. So it's very, the packaging is high quality. So when you open the box, it's full of these trays of paint, okay? And I took them out before so I could make the dot swatches. But this is 5 layers deep. Okay, so these are these kind of sort of flimsy plastic pans. It's a great way to keep them organized. Personally, there are many colors in here, which I'll explain later, that I would not use. So I would probably take these out and store them a different way, or even just take them out of this plastic box and put them into this box and just let them in there loose, because the box is super, very sturdy. But the plastic trays, I don't know, for me, it's just kind of tricky to get them out and, you know, to do it that way. So they're nice, but I would probably take them out and just put them in the box. Okay, so that's how they come. The tubes themselves are really high quality, a high quality cap, which sometimes professional paints don't have that. They're really easy to open and close. They don't feel like they're gonna break. Even my Daniel Smith paints and M. Graham paints, sometimes the tubes break, the caps break after a while. So I really appreciate the effort they put into the quality in their packaging. So on the front of the tubes, it basically has the name of the paint, everything that's on the box. So the light fast rating, opacity, the pigments that are used, and the color number. And on the back, it just has a safety seal, and then there's an American company, where they're from, all of that kind of stuff. And they also have a guarantee. If your product does not perform properly, please contact us for a replacement. Okay? So really, really nice packaging. I'm very, very happy with it. So let me bring my swatches over here. So what I did, one thing I noticed in this set, this is the set of 60. So they come in smaller sets. And in the set of 60, you get a lot of shimmer colors. So with mica, so there's like this white rose, there's silver, gold. And then the other ones I've marked with a P or the word pearl. So like this is eucalyptus pearl, emerald green pearl, okay? Pearl noir, so it's a black pearl, pearl bubblegum, pearl purple. So there's a lot of these shimmer colors, bronze, pearl orange. So I'm imagining that in the smaller sets, you don't get these pearl colors. So if I were going to buy them again, I would get a smaller set without the pearl colors, just because I don't typically use mica paints that often. So if you like sparkle colors, we'll see how they do. I'm not sure about that. So what I thought I would do is swatch out. I'm going to put this on time lapse so it doesn't take hours. And I'm going to swatch out each colors. Now these were put on here. They are dry, so we're going to see how they work, how they re-wet when they've dried. Okay, so if you put them on a palette or in pans, how they would react. Their tube watercolors tend to dry and crack when put into pans, so I would not do that. I just use them straight from the tube, and they're wonderful. So we'll see how they work. I'm also going to swatch them right over the names, okay, so we see how opaque they are. All right, so I'm going to put this on time lapse and then just swatch these out for you, and then I'll come back and we're going to do a little landscape with them. Okay, so I've left these to dry for about 30 minutes and some of them are still not dry. And the reason is because I had to use a lot of water, as you probably saw, to get these paints to move. So that tells me one thing. It tells me that when I use these paints, I'm going to use them straight from the tube. So if you are a person who likes to keep their paints in a palette and squeeze them into pans or onto a palette, I would not use these. I would probably use a gouache that has honey in it, like M. Graham. M. Graham, it's going to be 5 times more expensive, But on the other hand, if that's what you really want to do, then just select fewer colors and use a gouache that can re-wet easily. Because what happened here is that I had to use so much water to get them to move that they did not come off. You can still see the writing perfectly clearly, even with the titanium white. So that means, yeah, it means to use them straight from the tubes. And to me, that's not a big deal. I would prefer that anyways. That way I can select a few colors that I'm going to use for my project, put them on my palette, and use them fresh. And then I'm sure they're going to perform much differently. We'll do a little project with them in a minute. So most of these look very transparent. And I know that that's probably not the case, right, if I use it straight from the tube. So if it's something that matters to you, then these probably aren't for you. It doesn't matter to me. I'm very used to using tube paints, and so I would just use them straight from the tube. What I did love about them is there are some really beautiful colors that are unusual. You know, they're mixes, and these are colors that I would be excited to use. Some of them are gorgeous. Some of them, like Pearl Bubblegum and Peach Red, I'm probably not going to use that often. And I'm certainly not going to use the pearls, even though when some of these pearls have dried, I don't think you can even see it. I mean, the shimmer is very subtle. So if you like the color, you could probably use them transparent enough and not even see the mica, but I probably wouldn't. Now, like over here, you can see the bronze. This did get quite opaque, so I have hope for these as gouache if I'm using them straight from the tube. The colors are lovely. And this excites me because in December, I'm starting an illustration project that's going to last about a year. These would be perfect for that. Number one, it doesn't matter if you use student grade or light fast or anything, because the paintings are made for reproduction, right? So they're not going to be framed and hung on a wall. So these colors excite me and will be perfect for a project like that. Perfect for sketchbook work. Most of them are totally light fast, so they'd be perfect for any work. Yeah, really, really beautiful colors. Some of them, like this stone blue and this gray, are just this umber. They're just absolutely beautiful mixes. This ballerina pink and taupe and mauve, this whole row here just thrills me. So the colors I'm in love with. I think they're really fantastic. So those are the swatches, and hopefully it helped you to see how much I had to scrub them once they were dry. That is, no, so on the other hand, if it's something where you really want a transparent effect, that's maybe what you would do. You would let them dry on your palette overnight, and then when you use them, they're going to act more like watercolor. Okay? All right. So let me grab, I'm going to use their sketchbook to do a little painting. And I'm going to select, I'm going to turn the camera off for a second and select some colors to do a landscape, and I'll tell you what colors I'm using. But before I do that, I'm also going to show you, they sent me a brush set, and it's called their Detail Brush Set. And let me make sure I have them all here. Yes. So it comes with many brushes. I think the price is like $12 retail. Hold on, these are not their brushes. And there's one more. So I think it comes with, see, 12 brushes for $12. That is a really good deal. These are white Taklon. They're very, very fine points and small for detail work. Okay, so these are not going to be used for larger works, but for smaller works. And I think they're all size 1 to 40. All right, so they're really, really fine. It comes with spotters. Spotters, so it'll say on the side, spot. It says spot, 40 spot. So spotters are really short, fine-tipped brushes used for very fine detail when you don't want a lot of paint on your brush. It also comes with rounds, like this one. So this one is called a round. This is a size 1 for just regular, smaller, finer painting. And then it comes with liners. So this is a 2-0 liner for more expressive line work when we need more paint on the brush for like tree branches and things where we want a really pretty line. Okay, so I am going to use some of these in my painting and try them. So they're made out of white Taklon. They're synthetics, and they seem, I did use a couple the other day, and they seem to be really nice. They got a very fine point. Okay, So I'm going to turn the camera off, grab some color, and I will be back to try these gouache. Okay, so I've chosen some colors to use just to do a little demonstration landscape to see how they perform. And I've got here just a glass plate, and I'm going to put them out. So I chose titanium white because that is really, really important when we're using gouache. So I'm going to just put a little bit on my palette. We'll see how that works. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, I chose a yellow ochre for my yellow because I want to do sort of a field landscape. And then I chose the burnt umber and burnt sienna because I use those in almost every landscape. So you see, I'm just putting them on my palette, and this is typically how I work with two paints, unless I'm mixing really big washes. I also chose the mauve because it's just so beautiful. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of that on there just in case I want to use it. So for my greens, I chose 3. I chose sage green. I'll put that over here. I chose olive green. And I chose seaweed. Typically, I would use burnt sienna to make a green darker. So I'm going to try that. If it fails, if it does not work well, then I would use black. But I typically use burnt sienna when I'm using watercolor, or burnt umber to make a green a little bit darker. I chose, for the blues, I chose the gray because it's so gorgeous. And the sky blue. And the stone blue, again, this color, oh gosh, beautiful. And then for a darker blue, I chose Aegean blue. And so typically with watercolor, if I'm using just 1 or 2 blues, I would again use burnt sienna to make it a little bit darker. So those are the colors that I chose to use for this little project. So I'm just gonna set my palette over here, and you're probably not gonna see it entirely because I really want you to see the sketchbook is more important to me. So I'm going to open the sketchbook to a page that I have not used, and I'm going to use the cold press surface, and I will turn it this way to give us more room. All right, so maybe we can see the whole palette. Good enough, I think. All right, so I've got some water, I've got some brushes. I'm going to start with a larger brush because I typically would, and then I'll use some of the finer brushes as I get into it. So the thing is with a gouache painting, we can use pencil under it because gouache should cover pencil. Okay, so that's one great thing. If you do a drawing, your painting should cover any pencil marks that you make. So I'm just gonna sketch out a very simple landscape to try these out. And typically I like to paint fields. It's just like my thing. So I don't know if you can see that pencil. Let me see if I can find a darker one. I don't know. Do I have a darker pencil? Not really. Let's see how this, I have a number 2 pencil here. Just so you can see it a little bit better. No, it's not. Sorry, I was unprepared with a pencil. So I'm just going to try to make it a little darker so you can see. So I'm gonna put my field about 2/3 of the way down and just sort of draw a line across to suggest the horizon, okay? And then I'll just sketch in a little sort of tree area, all right? And maybe this one is a little bit in the foreground, so it kind of comes like this. All right, we should be able to paint right over that, and then my field will be down here. So with gouache, it's very much like using oil paints or acrylics in the fact that we can paint light over dark, or we should be able to, right? So I can start with a darker sky. I'm always going to start with the sky. And I'm going to take some of the Aegean blue, put it here on the palette, and I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to it to make it a bit darker, a little bit moodier, right? Let's see how this comes on the page. Okay, so that's pretty opaque, right? I should be able to get a nice layer with my Aegean. Made a little bit darker with burnt sienna. So I can see that once it starts to dry, it's kind of hard to move it. Typically gouache re-wets really easily, so let's see what happens. I'm also going to take a little bit of this lighter blue, sky blue, also add a touch of burnt sienna to it, and add that in. Now I can go right up to my tree line because really I should be able to paint the trees right over the sky. So typically, even with gouache, you could take the sky all the way down to the horizon and you should be able to paint your trees on top. And then I'm going to take some of this stone blue and bring it to my horizon line. Okay, so what I've noticed, it is a little bit streaky. Okay, that could also be my technique. I'm not saying that it's the paint's fault entirely. But it does have a nice coverage. Okay, remember, this is not watercolor, so we're not looking for the transparency of the paper. I mean, the white of the paper does shine through our colors. So now I'm gonna lay in some fields. So I'm just gonna take straight yellow ochre and go right up to my horizon line, right up to my tree line. A little bit more water. And so with gouache, you know, you can make it fairly transparent if you use a lot of water. This color is moving pretty well, right? Very nice glowing yellow ochre, very pretty. And so for my trees, I'm gonna start just with this seaweed green, which is the darkest green I have here, all right? And get quite a bit of that. And I am gonna add some burnt sienna to it and see what happens. Yeah, that works really well. A little bit more. So I'm going to start with the darkest value of green, like I would with gouache typically. And just go ahead and put my tree line. I'm not going to worry too much about my edges because if this were a painting, I would crop those later. And I'll leave a little bit of white in between so I know where this one starts. There. So one thing you'll notice when we're working with watercolor, and you would put a watercolor next to another watercolor, they're going to bleed into each other, right, and mix and mingle. Gouache doesn't typically do that as much unless you're using a ton of water, okay? A ton of water. So now I'm going to go back to this stone blue. I'm sorry, this is the gray. I don't want the stone blue. And I'm just going to put a little bit of that in down here. Go right up to my tree line. Just some heaviness in the middle of the sky there. So with gouache, typically what happens is as it starts to dry, and if you go back over it, it can lift fairly easily. So we can work with it when it's still wet. So I can take a little bit more of the Aegean blue and pop in some brighter color. And then I'm going to see what happens if I start to add some titanium white. So let's put a cloud in here. start to get a cloud shape, right? All right, I'll let that dry for a second. I'm going to take some more titanium white and I'm going to lighten up the back of my field. So typically it will pick up a little bit of what's below. Okay, I'm going to take more of the yellow ochre and mix it with a little bit of burnt sienna. A little more yellow ochre. And then I'm going to add some titanium white to it. And I'm going to put in some direction to this land. Give myself a little depth of field in the field. Okay, a little bit more titanium white. A little more burnt sienna down here. So see, I'm just sort of mixing it in and seeing if I can get some painterly effects on top. Now this is pretty bright still, so I'll take a little bit more titanium white. Let's say the land slopes down like that. A little bit more yellow ochre. So with gouache, we can layer quite a bit. So that's burnt sienna with a little bit of burnt umber. Show the slope. Now I'm going to have a bit of shadow, so I'm going to take a little bit of this mauve, just mix it right in with what I have, and just put a little bit of shadow under this land here. Okay. So far, this is behaving fairly well. I'm using my brush really lightly to just sort of blend the layers. Okay, let's go back to the sky for a second. We'll add a little bit more titanium white now that that's started to dry. And as it starts to dry, when we put white on, it'll start to look brighter, you know. And I want it brighter toward the top. And then I can use a little bit of that gray that I have here. Maybe add some heaviness to the cloud. Go back to the titanium white. It's still a little bit too wet. It's not gonna stay on. It's not gonna stay as bright. So let's go to the trees. I'm going to take some of this lighter sage green, add a little bit of yellow ochre to it. I want to warm it up, and a little bit of titanium white. And let's pretend like the tops of the trees are lit with a little bit of sun. So this is not covering too well. It's okay. I can still see some of what's underneath it. It might just be a little too wet. I'll take some of the olive green and just mix it right in and start building down so I get a little bit of depth toward the bottom. Okay, and then some of my seaweed again. Just add it into that darker pile. I want it to be more, a little bit more true to color, so I'm not mixing it in with the burnt sienna right now. Sort of building depth, and then I'll add some more burnt sienna to it. Get that really dark green. Toward the bottom. Okay, so you can see what's happening. It's not like watercolor, right? It's not spreading, it's not mixing with the other colors. You have to mix it yourself pretty much. If I were going to use a ton of water, so let's say I really wet this down and I put some paint down, okay, and then used another color with a lot of water and put it next to it, it might mix a little bit more, but still it's not going to whoosh like watercolor would whoosh. All right, so I'm going to let this dry for a minute and then come back and start another layer and see how it goes. Okay, so it is drier now, and I'm going to take my brush and get some water on it, but dry it off a bit and pick up some of that titanium white again. And we're going to work on that cloud. So the top of the cloud, see how nice that's laying now that it's dry. And what's wonderful is I can take a damp brush and pull it up a bit. So I'm just softening it in. And then I can take more of my gray and blend it in. A little bit more. And I can even add more to it, more white to it in a bit. Okay, so the sky itself, I have to say it dried kind of streaky, right? So I think knowing the paint better now, if I did it again, I would probably do the sky first and make sure it was really well blended and then put the cloud on. Yeah, I don't know, it just, I don't know if it's the paper or what, but it did dry streaky. You can probably see that. All right, there's not a whole lot I can do about that now. But yeah, so coming down to the trees, I'm going to go back to my lighter green, which was the sage green, and grab some titanium white. And just use the tip of my brush to put in some tiny little bits of sun at the very top, sunlight. And then grab my olive green and just mix it right in. So when you just continue to mix into the same color like that, you're creating color harmony because all of the colors have a little bit of the other color in it, which is really nice when you're working on something where you're blending a bit. Then I'll grab some of the seaweed, mix it right in, and come down even more. The colors really are pretty. And it is laying on top very nicely. And then I'll go into my burnt sienna and give myself a darker green. Add a little bit more of the seaweed in to get that really dark green down here. And so we have a definition between the two. I'm using little feathery strokes with my brush. I'm not just painting it on straight. So some of the under layer shows through a little bit. So for a watercolorist, I'm a watercolorist. I'm not really a gouache painter, but I do like to use it for illustrations sometimes because I can get certain effects with it that I can't get with watercolor. I'm going to go really dark with some little bit of burnt umber at the very, very bottom. There. And you can see with gouache, when you lay it on top, you can get brush strokes. The brush strokes remain. So now let's go on to the field. I'm going to start with some of the yellow ochre. Add a little bit of titanium white to it. And I think you'll see that you'll find that you'll use titanium white a lot with gouache to lighten things up, because if you add more water, it's going to get more transparent, and we don't want that. We want it to be opaque because it's gouache, otherwise we'd use watercolor. So here I'm just adding a little bit of texture to the top of the field. And I'm going to just use little strokes to sort of indicate the shape of the land, where it kind of comes down. A little bit of light. They meet. And then we'll go a bit darker. Down here, kind of meets. And add some of my burnt sienna in. These short little feathery strokes I'm using because on this stage I want to show that texture. And maybe I'll add a little bit of my burnt umber in for the very bottom. Down at the bottom there. Like that. Now, I could also go in with a little bit of titanium white and yellow ochre. I have that mixed. I'm going to try some of these little detail brushes. So I'm going to try a liner brush that's fairly fine. So this is the size 1, or I'm sorry, size 2. 0. And I'll grab some of that really just see how these make really nice fine strokes, and you can hold a lot of paint because they're long. just a little bit more fluid, you know, than using a shorter brush. I can get some little grass textures in the foreground if I want, right on top of that darker color, just to give it some depth. And even with some of the darker colors. Put a little bit of depth of field in there. Now my shadow, I've got that mauve here. I'm going to stick with this brush. And I'm just going to go up in between the bushes here and add a little bit more of that shadow where the tree meets the field. Just a little bit of texture in there. And bring it down in here because where the land swells down, where it goes down, I want a little bit of texture in there. Let's try another one of the detail brushes. Let's try, so this one is a 4-0 liner, so it's a liner as well, a little bit longer, okay? And I'm going to pick up some of that dark green and maybe even go a little bit darker, add a little bit of the burnt umber in there, and just put some little marks down here at the bottom of the tree, the shrub, or whatever it is. Yeah, that works really well. These brushes are great. Let me just get some straight. Get a little bit of texture in there. And then I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go back to the, I'm going to mix it with the bigger brush. So back to the lightest green that I had. Plenty of titanium white. So it's nice and light. So remember, you add white when you want it to be lighter. If we just added water like we do with watercolor, it wouldn't work so well. And I can just sort of add in a few little areas of lighter bits too. I'm not happy with what happened in the sky. I'd have to, I'm not sure if it's my fault or the paint. I'm going to go back to this yellow ochre with some of the white. See, these brushes are great for little grassy bits, right? Okay. If I wanted to, I could just take some, let me get, this is a liner. Let me try a, this is a round size 1. If I just get some titanium white, on my brush, let's see if we can work at these clouds a little bit. Get some real highlights happening. Because the sun, we're pretending the sun's over here. So the top of the clouds, just scrubbing in some white just to lighten it up a bit. And then with some water, just sort of blend it so it's soft. I'm going to go right into that sky blue, lots of titanium white. Just add a little bit of that. And maybe even a little bit of the mauve. Just for fun. So I think these brushes are going to be better for watercolor, detail in watercolor. I just don't have quite what I need for the gouache. But they are nice. I think they've got a great point. There, that's blending a little better for me. Put a little bit more white in there here. And then go back to my gray. Not the best cloud I've ever painted. But you see how you can really fuss with it. Gouache is very malleable, you know, it can take a lot. All right. So it's really doing its work, okay? The lights are standing up on top of the darks. I am able to blend. Now, one other thing to check, if I take water on top of it, usually, yeah, you can reconstitute it. So I just kind of ruined it there, but that's an important part of gouache too, because you should be able to move it once it's dry. Gouache is usually able to re-wet and lift once it's dry. Let's see what happens if I put, where's that lighter green? Yeah, see, I can see it on top, and that's good. Okay. All right. So I think it's pretty good, guys. Again, I'm not a gouache painter, but I want to use it more. Especially for more illustrative projects where I'm doing more graphic scenes, you know. I mean, with this, the other thing about gouache that's very different from watercolor is that it dries completely matte, which is great for reproduction work. So you don't have any shine the camera will catch. So I definitely will be using this more. I think a little bit of light in here. What happens if I just get some of this on my brush? Yeah, see, I can get really nice effects. Light over dark. Which is a wonderful thing. All right, so that is my little demonstration, my sort of lazy landscape. But I just wanted to try it, you know, and I wanted to try this paper. The gouache works wonderfully on this paper. I would not hesitate to use it, even for a finished piece. So yeah, I think these are pretty great. Let me just pull this back over one more time. So these are almost all dry now, and as you can see, with a couple exceptions, if you leave them to dry, they're going to be more transparent. You're just going to have to use a lot of water with them, and that's going to, you're going to lose your opacity with that. But look at these colors. They're just really fun. This gray and this, like, I could see doing a landscape with just these and like this line right here. Not this one. This is a pearl, but, and I have to say the pearls, once they dry, there is a little shimmer, but it's not too much. This white rose is actually really pretty, and I could see that. It is a pearl color, but it is a lovely color, and I could see it used for moons or things like that. So yeah, I think it's a great value. If you want to try gouache, if you want to get into it and give it a try and see how it works for you, I think this is an excellent set. Let me just try one other thing. I'm just going to take the stone blue and put it here on this dry paper right from the tube, right? I mean, it is great. It's very, very opaque. Works wonderfully. Then if I mix some Aegean into it, I can get good blending. And then if I mix some white, I can get good tinting. So that's really opaque paint. You should do really well with this, I think. Great set. I'm very impressed. For the price, I want to say it's under $40 for 60 colors. That's just remarkable, right? So check out the description box. I will leave you links to their products on their website and a discount code that they give me for you. I don't receive anything from that, so don't worry about that. But I would buy these. I would buy a smaller set probably, and so I didn't spend money on the pearls that I probably wouldn't use. They're not that pearly, and some of the colors are really nice, so who knows? Maybe for the extra 10 bucks, I would just get them and see what happens. And again, most of them, with a rare exception of these really fluorescent colors, and then this one here, I think. One other one is not light fast. You've got a light fast opaque gouache. Pretty great. All right, everybody, I hope this was helpful for you. Also, I really do like the sketchbooks. The brushes, I will try again with more watercolor projects, but I think they're going to be really good for watercolor. I think gouache is just too heavy for them, and so they don't keep their shape like they should. But I think for watercolor, they're going to be fantastic. What a bargain, really. All right, thank you very much for joining me. I hope this was helpful, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Take care.